Okay, so good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Miguel Amado. I am the director of Sirius Art Center in Cobh, County Cork. And this is another session of the project that Sirius Art Center with the artists Colette Lewis and Cobh Zero Waste have been developing in the last months, and which will continue within the upcoming months as well, with a series of online discussions that we have named Reframing Community-based Economies, where we are trying to speculatively create almost an informal think tank, an informal group of people, of interested people based in Cobh and elsewhere, to explore ideas of diverse economies and how dominant understanding of economies do not recognize some other practices that are as relevant or even more relevant to the world in which we live and facing and enable us to understand and face the challenges that we are also going through. We've been using different resources, but one of the key resources we've been using is a book called Take Back the Economy, which we'll introduce in a few minutes, but it's a sort of a tool for activists, community organizers, artists, arts organizations, other kinds of organizations to reclaim areas of activity that somehow are invisible in mainstream capitalist principles and enterprises. And we are trying to develop a sort of critical mass that enables post-lockdown or in a sort of post-COVID-19 phase to then move from online to on-site and off-site activities where we can implement or start to implement some of the ideas that we've been exploring in these sessions. Maybe Colette, Steve, do you want to say any other things as a way of introduction?
Do we need to say anything, Steve? Or can we just get down to work?
The rationale for this series is Sirius Art Center is an arts organization who wants to play a civic role, wants to contribute to the understanding and potentially change elements of society rather than just operate within the specific autonomous field of art. And Cobh Zero Waste and Colette had the opportunity in the past to work together on a project that Colette was developing for Sirius Art Center, part of a larger research and creative inquiry around arts and older people in the area of Cork City and Cork County. So that's why and how we came together. So we've been doing different sessions. Today, the ambition is to do a little bit more practical work. We might not reach a goal or an endpoint, might just be the beginning of something. And in order to do that, what we're going to do now is to recap briefly some of the reflections we already had the opportunity to have, and then move to that. Some of the work, some of the ideas have been put forth by myself or by Colette, by Steve, by Moggy and others at Cobh Zero Waste. So it's a mix of discussions, and we believe that it's through this mix that we will potentially encounter points of convergence and relationships that will create this critical mass I was referring to. Without making it too formal, so anyone can interrupt me or Colette or anyone else, and then in the more practical side of things, we'll see everyone is asked and invited to contribute. So I'm going now to share a quick PowerPoint, and we're going to also to show a couple of films that help us navigate what I've been saying. We just have someone else in the Zoom, and I'm going now to share my screen.
And just to remember to select the sound.
Exactly.
Sharing, yep.
I need to tell you to install the Zoom audio device. Give me a second. I need to authorize something here. You are seeing my screen now, right?
Yep.
So I'm opening my PowerPoint. Give me a second. Things take more time than I So, so as I mentioned, this series, Reframing Community-based Economies, has been evolving, and we've been using one resource, which is this book, Take Back the Economy. We had a session in January where we looked more in detail into some parts of the book, like basically the introduction. And this book has been authored by a few people, but is mostly the result of the work that this scholar called Catherine Gibson has been doing with others for many, many years now. And we had the opportunity to watch a short clip where she introduced the idea of taking back the economy. To help us move on from that introduction to a more general overview of the project of taking back the economy, we're going to share now another short film, 5 minutes, where there is a presentation of a cluster, and well, they call it the Community Economies Institute, but basically it's a cluster of people and organizations who have been working around these ideas. And we thought it was an interesting idea to show it today. So either to recap or to introduce some of you who might have not been with us before on the project. So I'm now going to share this. Okay.
The Community Economies Institute is a non-profit organisation. It was established in 2019. Our main goal is to further research, education and advocacy for community economies. In the Institute, we're interested in economies that support communities. We try to identify economic practices that help people and planet to survive well together. This means meeting our individual human needs alongside the needs of others, including the needs of all our companions on this planet, human and non-human. Our work builds on the foundational assertion that we live in an already diverse economy, that these economic practices are already present all around us. J.K. Gibson Graham and other diverse economies scholars argue that standard definitions of the economy ignore too much. Often they ignore the very things our livelihoods actually rely on. We sustain and nurture ourselves and our families through a vast array of practices that are seldom acknowledged by economists. The diverse economy is made up of all kinds of practices. Yes, wage labour and capitalist enterprises, but also unpaid work, bartering, subsistence production, gifting, gleaning and scavenging. These activities take place in cooperatives, community gardens, non-profits, and households. They occur in partnership with the work done by other non-human planetary companions that provide for our air, soil, and water. Our economy is the one we build as we shape our livelihoods. It's diverse and includes not just flows of money, but of all the things that survival is based on. Now, this includes less than ideal economic practices. So the next step for us is to identify which of these diverse practices can enable a more sustainable and equitable existence. Which economic practices offer examples of how to survive well, how to produce and consume in ways that nurture our communities. These are the ones that we want to foster in building community economies. And for us, community is never a closed group. It's what comes into being as we negotiate our shared existence with others. Those others are sometimes close and they're sometimes distant. Sometimes they are human and sometimes they are not. As we conduct our work and care for others, as we make decisions about what groceries to buy or what to invest our resources in, as we shape our lives and our livelihoods around the available opportunities, we are constantly entering into relationships with others. We are constantly creating communities. And as a result, there are many ethical decisions to be made. How do we survive well? What do we really need to live healthy lives in ways that don't impinge on others' health and well-being? How do we distribute surplus? What do we do with what's left over from meeting our survival needs? And how do we decide what to do with it? What kinds of transactions do we want to have? How do we get the things we can't produce ourselves? And what kinds of relationships with others do we create while we're doing that? How do we consume sustainably? What do we use up in the process of surviving well? And how can we do this with care? How do we maintain, restore, and replenish our commons? How do we invest for future generations? How do we store and use our surplus for the well-being of people and planet into the future? As community economies researchers and practitioners, we see ourselves engaged in an ongoing process of learning, exploring how to become ethical subjects alongside our human and Earth others. There is no single model for how to do this, and no fixed destination. Finding the path forward is about ongoing ethical negotiations, working out ways to survive well together.
Okay, so it really provides an overview of the questions at stake and what are the tools or the concepts through which...
Again, I want to say that it has been and it continues to be a very weird and challenging year.
So, that was the voice of Catherine Gibson, actually. So maybe next time we'll hear a little bit of the talk, but it's a long, very long talk. Anyhow, so this video which we saw, it's an interesting overview of the questions at stake with respect to community economies and the diversification of the understanding of economics, and also what are the principles, conceptual premises through which we may evolve into developing, implementing, recognizing diverse economies. So the tool that the key tool that has been used by this group of people in recent years, in the last 20-25 years, has been what they call the Iceberg model, which you have an example here in this talk by Catherine Gibson. And the ambition for today, it would be to use it as use this Iceberg model to think through questions that are more close to us. So this is the most recent commonly used version of the Iceberg model, was also shown in the video we just saw. We don't need to really look at it in detail. That's not the point here, but as you can see, it's a clear visualization of two types of economies, some above the water, some below the water. And have someone else joining us. And another image which was shown is this one. So this is a different version which was made, also shown in the video, and was made more recently. It moves from a set of words which represent types of activity, types of people, types of organizations, to a more conceptualization of transactions and context in which they emerge. Interestingly, in February, so a few weeks ago, we had Catherine Baum, the artist who was involved. We had her speaking in one of the sessions, and she's the artist that who was involved in the making of this version. And this was part of an exhibition in an organization called East Side Projects in Birmingham, England, in 2013. And they basically traded with Catherine Gibson a text for a publication with the redesign of an earlier version of the Iceberg model. Now, the Iceberg model has been used also by other artists. So here we are following this trajectory. And here you have an artist based in Scotland who actually is using a 3D version of the Iceberg model in a live action for people to contribute. We will have Ailie speaking to us in the next session. So more information about that will be shared. And we are building this narrative around from concept to practice and using case studies elsewhere in the world where, and actually very close to us in the UK, where we might learn some ideas and some things for us to use. Quite interestingly, the iceberg has not been only an iceberg from in terms of visualization. Here you have a coconut, so it's a much more apt type of image in the context of Melanesia. And this particular one is quite interesting because specifically looks at the difference in role, the gendered understanding of economy, the different roles that men and women traditionally carry out. So for us here, we would also like to have our own iceberg, and hopefully maybe in the future our own iceberg will be part of these different icebergs that have been drawn and mapped out in different places. So what we've done here is convert the geographics, the map of the geographic representation of Great Islands into an iceberg where you see the tip and the bottom. And the exercise that we are proposing today is around the question of what is productive and non-productive or unproductive work, and how each one of them have a corresponding value. So this is what we are, me and Colette and Cobh Zero Waste are proposing for us to do today. In order to introduce this idea, we are going to share another short film based on a TED talk by Marilyn Waring, where she describes this dilemma, this opposition, and the sort of ideological roots behind it. Okay, so I'm going to play it now.
Tau piri te moanga, Waikato te awa, ko Marilyn tēnei, kia ora. As you've heard, when I was very young, I was elected to the New Zealand Parliament. And at that age, you learn mostly by listening to others' stories. I remember a woman who'd been injured in a farm accident, and it was coming up to shearing time on the farm. And she had to be replaced by a shepherd, by a rousey in the wool shed, and of course there was still someone needed to manage the household and to prepare the food for the shearing gangs. And her mother came to help with that. But the family got no compensation for the mother because that's what mothers and family members are supposed to do. One year, a company called Gold Mines New Zealand applied for a prospecting license on our beautiful Mount Pirongia. It is a mountain full of extraordinary ecosystems, of verdant native forests. It produced oxygen, it was a carbon sink, it was a home for endangered species and for pollinating species in the farmland around. And the mining company put up this great economic prospectus that was about how much money could be made from mining our mountain, about all the growth and development that would show in New Zealand's budgetary forecasts. And we were just left with the language of all that we valued about our mountain. Fortunately, we stopped. And then I remembered a woman who had 3 children under 5, who was caring for our elderly parents, and nobody seemed to think that at some stage she might actually need some assistance with childcare because she wasn't in the paid workforce. And there began to be a pattern in all of these stories I was being told. And I started to ask enough questions to try and track to the core of this pattern of values that was part of all of these stories. And I found it in an economic formula called the gross domestic product, or the GDP. Most of you will have heard of it. Many of you won't have any idea what it actually means. The rules were drawn up by Western educated men in 1953. They established a boundary of production in drawing up these rules. What they were keen to measure was everything that involved a market transaction. So on one side of the boundary, everything where there was a market exchange was counted. It doesn't matter whether the exchange is legal or illegal. Market exchange and the illegal trade in armaments, musicians, drugs, endangered species, trafficking of people, all of this is great for growth, and it all counts. On the other side of the boundary of production, there was this extraordinary phrase in the rules that the work done by the people they called non-primary producers was, quote, of little or no value. So I thought, let's see how many non-primary producers we have here today. So in the last week or so, how many of you have transported members of your household or their goods without payment? How many of you have done a bit of cleaning, a bit of vacuuming, a bit of sweeping, a bit of tidying up the kitchen? Yeah? How about going shopping for members of the household? Preparing food, cleaning up afterwards, laundry, ironing. Well, as far as economics is concerned, you were at leisure. Now, how about the women who have been pregnant and who have had children? Yes? Now, I really hate to tell you this because it might well have been hard labour, but at that moment you were unproductive. And some of you may have breastfed your infant. Now, in the New Zealand national accounts, that's what the figures are called. That's where we get the GDP. In the New Zealand national accounts, the milk of buffalo, goats, sheep and cows is of value, but not human breast milk. When we look at the amount of time that's taken in the unpaid sector, what we find is that in almost every country where I've ever seen the data, it is the single largest sector of the nation's economy. In the last 3 years, for example, the UK statistician has declared that all of that unpaid work is the equivalent of all manufacturing and all retailing in the UK. In Australia, the single largest sector of Australia's economy is unpaid childcare. And the second largest sector is all the rest of the unpaid work, before banking and insurance and financial intermediation services clock in at the largest part of the market sector. Just last year, the Premier of the Victoria state of Australia declared that half of that state GDP was in fact the value of all the unpaid work. Now, as a policymaker, you cannot make good policy if the single largest sector of your nation's economy is not visible. You can't presume to know where the needs are. You can't locate time poverty. You can't address the most critical issues of need.
Okay, so yeah, so that's what we like now to move on, is to try to visualize productive versus non-productive work in our surroundings, in our context, in our lives, and go back then to examine exactly where we are, start drawing this iceberg. You may remember the vision, visible, invisible. Those are the words that were used in this fantastic, fascinating talk, which was longer. We had it cut short. And it was very clear the argument that was being made. And we might start even by that, quite like really approaching the exercise through this distinction and through the examples that were given us. And ultimately, you may remember the video, the first video. Ultimately, it's to try then from this starting point to the visualization in the iceberg, to then go back to take back the economy through these principles that were lined up. So I'm going to stop sharing now. We should have an opportunity if someone wants to ask or make any comment or ask anything now, and then I'll pass the session I'll hand over to Colette. Okay.
It just might be worth mentioning there about Marlon Waring, that she's written a very influential book in the late 80s, 1988, called If Women Counted. And that was a really groundbreaking book, I suppose, in terms of feminist economics, specifically because she did highlight this invisible labor, this invisible activity that's contributing hugely to the country's economy, by looking at housework, care work, taking care of children, you know, so which is all excluded and devalued. So I guess this is kind of where we're segueing in. I mean, Marlon Waring's work is really significant, really, in the transition that we're making here in terms of maybe looking at the iceberg model and how we might map it in terms of the invisible, you know, in terms of thinking about the invisible activities that are considered, we're using that term in brackets, unproductive activity that we're all engaged in, and to map it for ourselves, to sort of, you know, think about all these relationships that we have and all these activities that we're doing, even amongst, you know, those members of this group who are, you know, sharing these types, you know, of activities as well, to make it visible. So I guess it is a sort of like, it's a political act in that sense, you know, to sort of excavate. It is an exercise in excavation, and also of kind of sharing and acknowledging together the value of this, because it is important. Personally, I feel it's important that it is given the light of day in this sense, and this is one way of doing it. But yeah, so she's worked. So there's more to that TED Talk. Just TED Talk was just is recent enough, 2 years ago, but the book that she wrote initially was, you know, was over 30 years ago.
Anyone else wants to say any words now? Any comment? It's clearly, I mean, just as my final comment would be, is you know, this might seem not so new now, but it's clearly important to understand that the way we live today, particularly in the West, it's almost like naturalized or made natural to such an extent that we don't recognize that, for instance, something like GDP has been created around the table by probably X number of white European / North American men, and that it is as artificial as anything else. And there is a clear understanding, and mean, there is a clear gendered bias, there's a clear demographic bias, there's a clear age bias here. So, you know, people, for instance, one of the research drivers that Colette developed in her work in Cobh 2 years ago and last year was about the under assessment and then the negative value it was assigned to manual labor and other kind of expertise by senior members of the population who basically were considered non-productive or became redundant in face of technology. And reclaiming those activities and assigning them that, and recognizing their value is a clear pathway towards taking back the economy and diversifying and economic activity. So this makes a lot of connections and resonates a lot. This is what we just heard with the key ideas that we've been developing, but also the experience of some of us within a specific context. Okay.
So I guess, yes, was there someone? No. So I guess the plan now is that we do an exercise together, and how we're going to do this, I'll explain. So I will need to, there'll need to be a little bit of administration before we can do this. So some of you may already be familiar with this whiteboard. It's an online collaborative, co-design website. This one is called Miro. And what we would like to attend this evening is that each of us contribute to this. So how it works is that I will need to invite each of you just by you giving me your email, and then I'll send you an email, and that basically invites you to the board. So you can write directly on this board. Probably there are 14 of us in total. So we'll say myself and Miguel may just moderate it so that we can, you know, oversee it and facilitate it. So that means there would be 12 writers, users. So this is the Cobh model. So this basically is a board. You can move this around anywhere you like. If you look down on the right-hand corner, you can see that this is the overall scale of it. This is an infinite whiteboard, so it goes on forever, but we're going to work within this space here. The main thing that we're going to work with is using sticky notes. So that's over here. So you can select a sticky note. So what I'd like to do is assign a color to each person individually. So you work with that sticky note color as your, as the color that you've chosen to write your information on. So you choose a sticky note. After that, you can just use the letter N and automatically it will create a sticky note for you. This is my note. Knots. Well, I could do a bit of proper spelling, N-O-T-E, yeah, so this is my note, and then also click it, and then you can actually move it anywhere you like around the board. So we're all going to use this board together, and our focus really, I guess, is thinking about this question, you know, what productive and unproductive activities do you know about, and also that you see happening in the community around you that you're familiar with. So it's activity that you're both engaged within. So anything that's productive goes above the waterline, and anything considered. Now this is on the basis of Marlon Waring's sort of definition of what productive and unproductive activity actually is. So anything productive goes above the waterline, and anything unproductive then goes below the waterline. So to set this up, it's going to take maybe about 5 to 10 minutes in order, because I just need to get each of your emails, and then as you come in, I'll just assign you a color, or you can pick a color. And then we go from there. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll stop sharing now. So this is the board, and any questions that you need to ask, we'll just ask them as we go. So what will be really great is just to see, you know, what other people are writing, because that as an activity will also maybe trigger ideas for yourself as well. And if you see other people have written stuff that you all also share, duplicate it, you know, so you're writing from your own experience, your own witness, your own lived experience, and your own witnessed experience. So you will see ones that are similar to your own. So it would be great just to sort of see what patterns begin to emerge, and we'll see the patterns beginning to emerge at the end of it. If we, at the end of it, possibly what we could do is cluster maybe different areas for different types of activity and just get a sense of maybe what patterns maybe are beginning to emerge. And I think that's pretty much it. That's what we're planning on doing this evening.
So I am now collecting the emails in the chat. Okay.
Okay. So Miguel, you signed up for today, so maybe you could explain, because I sent you an invite today. I've signed up for this a while ago, so I don't remember the process. So you may have to, you may just have to use a username, or you may have to just set up an account or something.
Yeah, well, you'll receive an invite, and then you just need to log in. You can use either Gmail to log in, or you have to create like a username. So I'm sorry for that. But it should be straightforward. Okay, and if you are on Gmail, it's easy, but if you're not, it should be easy as I was saying. Just while I'm doing this, which is collecting all the emails, we could maybe start speculatively talking, because what is interesting is that, you know, we are also basically saying, using the definition, and it would be obvious that someone might say immediately, you know, I'm going to write something in the board which is considered non-productive, but for me it's actually hyper-valued, right? So we need to adhere to this kind of basically the mainstream understanding of what it is and what is not, in that sense, productive and non-productive. And that's how you recognize, then you start creating those diversity icebergs. Let me see how many I have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
So I'm just setting them in sequence of the chat there. So whoever's at the top, I think Helen, you will have got yours by now, and then Lucia and Neil and Stephen, yours one.
I'm going to send a few now to you, Colette, so that some of us can start signing up. Okay.
Oh yeah, no, there's I'm doing them one by one, so people are beginning to sign up now. So that's Steve.
Sorry, can I just ask, does that affect if very familiar with Miro just for the last couple of months and who signed into it? Does it matter if it's you
need to join a new team, is it?
Is that okay? It just joins a new team. It doesn't matter if I've signed, like I've used that before, so it won't
Yeah, I actually see I'm joining a few other teams as well. So I've had to use a different email to actually set up a team on this. So if you follow the link, will it take you to this board?
You know, sorry, I was just conscious of just Marie's in there before. I've already logged in with my email before. I guess I thought I mightn't have been able to do it again, but I'll just
see if it works. Like in a way, it should work.
Yeah.
I just know that I couldn't create because I'm part of another board. I couldn't actually create. It just kept sending me to that team that I'm part of. So when I needed to create a new board separate to that project, I just had to use a different email.
Okay.
So yeah, maybe it's different if you use a paid version of it. Like, so this is a great interactive tool, co-designing tool to actually use. Okay, I think Emily, I just sent you one there.
Right, I've been sending some of the emails of the participants, so you can maybe start sending the invites.
You mean from the chat?
I've sent you by email to your Colette CIT and Hotmail email. That's how it works.
Okay, well, these ones here, I think they're in the chat, Miguel.
Yeah, so I'm sending them to you to make it easy. I think it's easy. Or do you want to do them?
I'm nearly there.
All right. Okay. So yeah. Rita, yes, Rita. So I don't need to do that job, right? That work.
That's okay. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Rita just posted a note in the chat about the book, Kate Raworth's book, Donut Economics. So in fact, Steve is going to do a session on that particular book. Do you want to say? Yeah, Steve.
Yeah, sorry, I was trying to learn the Miro there from, so I got a bit distracted. Yeah, so I guess that's going to take place in May, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, and I was actually, as you were talking through this session, I was thinking that in fact, you know, that book is kind of looking at it slightly differently in some ways, and I wondered whether it might be thinking about this in terms of these the kind of non-productive items that we're going to be putting into this board now, because you know, like you were saying, Miguel, to us these are really important things. So it's almost about what things we feel that how we want to measure the economy in the future. So instead of GDP, what are the kind of things that we really value about, you know, society and the planet, and the kind of activities that we do together as communities to try and you know, to try and improve things. So what are these, you know, the more valuable stuff to us? So I was kind of wondering whether, because non-productive to me just sounds wrong. I don't know why. I find it difficult to conceive of of things without, you know. So I was wondering about looking at it another way. I know that then you've also got to take only those ones that are not perceived to be in the main economy, but you know, it's almost like, you know, because we know that we have to transform the economy. We know we've got to completely transform our society as well as our economy. So how do we start looking at things and measuring our progress in terms of social and environmental measures? And that's really what Kate Raworth's book, The Donut Economics, suggests, is that economics should be about meeting social and environmental goals. So we completely change from GDP to different outlets. And I you know, it kind of fits in quite nicely with this, I think, in some ways.
No, I totally agree with you. I mean, the use of this term, we are using terminology that we want to challenge or recreate. So that's actually an interesting exercise on its own. We might come up in the near future. We could maybe have another thinking in another session just around, you know, creating alternative terminologies. So here we are by default drawing from mainstream language that somehow enables the understanding, like our common understanding here of what we are talking about. But of course, these are terms that shouldn't be used without the explicitly criticizing them for their ideological charge. When we were thinking through the session today, at some point I said, yeah, let's just use these words. We were talking about, let's use the words, but like between inverted commas, so to try to manifest that we are uncomfortable with that use as well. So that's quite a fundamental point. But it's, you know, what is quite relevant in these kind of think tank situations in which you find ourselves is that different people coming from different backgrounds somehow have points of convergence. Of course, that we are all here around some similar or common concerns and interests, but it's nice that someone like Rita or anyone else could suggest something that we are in fact considering analyzing in the near future. So that's really curious.
Could I check in that everyone is okay with signing in? It's lovely to see people's cursors floating around the island. It looks very paranormal. Moggy, are you in?
Colette, are we choosing sticky notes or comments?
So the sticky notes, we'll work with the sticky notes. And what I wanted to do, so maybe if you could see that there are other colors being used. So just choose a color that hasn't been used already, if possible. And once you take your sticky note from the left-hand panel, which is over here, you can just use the N letter on the keyboard after that, and that will reproduce a sticky note for you. So Maggie, I can't hear you. Your sound is off.
Sorry, I'm on my iPad. Maybe that's I forgot. You told me to go on my laptop. Sorry.
Is it doable on your iPad?
Yeah, and I think I'm in. I signed in.
I see Micah is there, Neve, Lucia, Phoebe.
I saw Maggie's name come up in here. And I thought I signed in as well, but I can't see myself.
Yeah, it says Myro team. Welcome, Maggie Summers.
There's Mary. Mary, you're up there. So there's someone flying around the left. Yeah, Helen, I see you're way up in the north. So
Me?
come down. I see Mary, who's way up.
Yeah.
Yeah, can you see where the map is? Are you looking at my screen or are you doing it on your own screen? Because
I think my own screen.
yeah.
Will
So,
I go to your screen?
Can you find the island? So I can see that Mary is up in the left-hand corner and there's someone over on the left. Steve, you're over on the left. There's Rita. So Rita, you're flying all over the place.
Colette, can you just explain how to open a sticky note?
How to open it? So, all you're doing, Steve, right, is can you see my screen? Or are you looking at your own?
I look at this screen now. Yeah, okay. So you go up to the sticky note.
You go to my screen, yeah, and all you do is click the screen. So once you kind of select your sticky note, click the screen, and then you type into it, and then you click the screen behind it, and that saves it, and then you can move it around wherever you like. You can actually delete it.
Yeah, for some reason mine's not working. When I click the screen, all I get is a dot, and I can't. It's not opening to type into it.
Okay, so where is your cursor? Where are you?
I'm just above the. I don't know where I am now.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay, can you make it to the island? Can you come?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my God, Ella is lost as well, I think.
I can't find myself.
Okay.
Oh my God.
Okay, so Rita is moving, flying all over the place.
Maybe what you should do is those that have
Oh, I see myself.
everyone that is already in the island, you could
Make it to the island.
make it to the island, click on a sticky note, go back to the island, and then you can start typing. Is that okay?
On the thing.
Okay, so Mary, you're over on the right-hand side.
Yeah, I can't see the, I'm actually doing it on my laptop and I'm listening to you on my phone because my laptop is going to die it's got 7% left and I can't recharge it. But I can see the people moving around, but I can't actually see the iceberg.
Oh, you can.
No, I can't. No, I can see Phoebe and Colette Lewis and they're all kind of on top of each other, but I can't see my iceberg is tiny, if that is the iceberg.
Yeah, I think it's zoomed out. If you just try zoom in.
You need to zoom in, Mary. Yeah, so if you zoom out, it's going to look like this. So if you zoom in into the island, and then you can move it around. So it might be a little bit tricky on your phone.
Yeah, well, my battery's going to die quite shortly, and I have no recharger here, so I can't actually. 1 second, I'll just see if I can zoom in.
Okay, so Helen, did you make it to the island?
No, I was down the bottom and I can't see myself now anymore.
Okay. Are you looking at the screen or are you working on your own screen?
I'm looking at this screen here, the one in the chat.
19 hours.
Okay, I don't see where you've got to. Mary's down below, but Helen, you've disappeared way off.
I have.
In this case, no, in this case, it's better if you just go and create another sticky note with another color.
I couldn't even find myself to find a sticky note.
So maybe Helen, if you work off your own screen,
I'll see, does that
because you should be able to navigate. So the thing, because this is an infinite whiteboard, your eyes will be zoomed out too much.
I've disappeared. Okay.
You have this. So is that you maybe over on the left? Oh yeah, I see you. Okay, come to the right. Just keep moving to the right. Keep moving to the right. You know, but bring it over to the right. Keep going screen right. Okay, you've gone way down now. You've just.
Jeepers.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Do you want to continue and I'll try and navigate?
So I can see you're over on the left of the island. So you just have to come right. Move your cursor to the right.
Okay.
Slowly, go very, very slowly. I'm wondering, is the island actually, so are you looking at my screen or are you looking at
No,
your,
my own screen now, yeah. I
okay,
go into your screen now. I'm back to the chat screen.
back to the chat screen. Okay, so you've disappeared again.
Maybe. Yeah.
Okay, I think you're there. Oh no, that's Mary's over on the left.
I was just going to ask if someone's commented already a similar idea. Is there any point would you put it down? Would I put it down as well? And also, I'm just laughing. This is like,
Yeah, just replicate. I mean, again, just replicate, because it's really from your own experience that you write things. Is there anyone else yet that's not logged in or is having difficulty logging in?
I think I am. I can't see myself at all. I think it's because it's my iPad, actually. I can see your screen and I can see people's names floating around.
Yeah.
I'm the same, Moggy, actually. I can see everything, but I can't see me, or I can't do anything with you.
So I can see Mary all right floating around.
Where am I? Can't see me.
You're up in north. So if you're north of the island at the moment. So if you look at my screen, you can see where you are now. Oh, Bobby, I think I saw you.
Yeah, I'm. Oh my God.
You're
I made a big mess.
Look at my dragon foot back down again, though.
okay. And Helen, you're over to the right of the island at the moment.
Can you see me?
If you look at my screen, you can see where you are in relation to the island. Now you've gone down.
Oh, have I? I went to click the Zoom thing on the bar to change the year. Oh, I see myself.
So you can see where you've left a sticky note there, yeah?
Oh, wow.
Colette, sorry, can you invite me in again there, because I've a different Gmail account now, please.
Okay, so I'm going to just stop this. I'm going to stop the screen share for a sec because I'm going to just get your
okay. Go to the loop.
So Anna, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, but it's Emily Ahern is the Emily Ahern, Emily Emma Ahern at gmail.com.
Yeah. So under normal, circumstances, we would be doing this obviously as a workshop all together in a room with a wall and loads of sticky notes. And but this looks great. This looks fantastic.
If anyone's having trouble getting in, I don't mind putting sticky notes on their behalf if you just want to pop it in the chat.
That's a good idea, Phoebe.
Nice one.
Yeah, Phoebe, you probably have to do that for me because
yeah, no problem.
Yeah, if you don't mind.
Just pop whatever you want in the chat and I'll put it in.
Okay, thanks.
So those who are not feeling comfortable, or they of course are in writing notes and so on, they of course they can stay. They don't need to leave the session. They can stay, and like Phoebe suggested, if you want to have any thoughts and you're not able to do it, or you can't navigate the system, which is totally fine, because even people who have been working with Miro or other tools like this might have still hard times in doing it. You can always either just speak up, you don't need to be muted, or you can write in the chat, okay? So Siobhan, I just saw your note saying whether we'd like you to leave. You should stay if you want, it's totally fine. So maybe we should give ourselves another 5 minutes, so that in the last 20-25 minutes we can actually look at some of the things that we wrote, and potentially, given the interesting level of contribution that we are having here, which of course was nothing but expected, we may then organize a second session to then go back to the notes and see how we can organize them. Okay. And I also see, so it's important, as much as important to consider and let's just use the word unproductive labor. It's also important to understand what you feel you've been doing or you see around yourself that is considered productive. So for instance, I wrote something like working from home for Sirius under my contract, so against my wages, let's say. And for more invisible kind of work that is not recognized, I wrote something like looking after my son while the lockdown is in place and he has no school. So it's important that we don't see this as a set of intentions, like what we would like to see happen, but what you can actually see, but what you recognize is taking place as we speak in these days. Because from realizing what might not be taking place or what might be not recognized as something valued, then we can understand the needs for future work in order to make that invisible work become visible and diversifying it, diversifying the economies around it.
I've given up, Colette.
You have?
Yeah, I can't. I think.
Where's
Maggie, you can just text me your ones and I'll put them in with a different color.
Okay, thank you.
No worries.
Are you able to type into the chat, Maggie?
I can see the thing, but I can't. If I go on the notepad, I can't. It won't do anything. I like if I write, it just goes all over the place.
I can do yours, Moggy, if you want, because otherwise Phoebe has so many to do.
Yeah, we can share the load.
I've just typed in a few things there to the chat. If somebody could put them on stickers for me.
Okay, I'll do that for you, Helen.
Great, thanks, Colette.
I think for me to get to the chat. Oh yeah, no, there it is. So you are, oh yeah. Any particular color, Helen?
The green, yeah, that lime green is lovely.
Okay, was it just in one message? Yeah, was it?
I don't know. Well, they were all different things, but they all.
It's
you know, it's
kind of garden upkeep.
Yeah, I can.
Yeah, can you see? Yeah, it's there.
They're kind of domestic.
Oh, that's beautiful. Spending time with people.
Right. I might just put separate them out.
Maybe I sent something on WhatsApp to you.
Yeah, I've got it here for you, Maggie. You're purple.
Oh, Yeah, brilliant. Okay, thank you. Very
No
good.
worries.
Whoa. That was not intentional. On a sticky note. Oh,
My arrow is great. It's a bit finicky. I'm laughing because we were using it for a lot for college the last while. My arrow is a bit like finicky, but it's great for this.
yeah, so you're using it on MA Space as well, yeah?
Yeah, I'm just laughing because we just finished. I thought I'd seen at the end of it for a while, but this is much more fun with a larger group and a map, like touring around Cork. But we were doing more kind of literal mind maps. But I'm very late asking. I was putting things personally that I see as productive at the top. Is that were we putting it in as in society sees?
Yeah, so the productive part at the top is all what kind of falls within this, that's sort of that GDP measures. GDP measures, so it's kind of wage-based labor, or those types of things.
Yeah, and transactions. Yeah.
I'll switch mine around and I hit them the back way around. Okay.
Because you see, there's also an interesting questions, like, for instance, but even within it, for instance, around the pandemic, there has been a lot of discussion with the fact that frontline workers, from people working in grocery, like food shops, to nurses, to those who collect rubbish. So there's also different values assigned to those activities, but a lot of those that have to stay working throughout the pandemic, when the majority of the population was withdrawing from being outside, the majority of those working were actually underpaid, undervalued. So this is also, even within the tip of the iceberg, there is a different understanding of the value of certain kinds of activities. And what has been recognized is that activities around practices of care, looking after others, taking care of others, making sure others feel are well, they traditionally are undervalued. So, and you know, in a sort of black and white situation, why the CEO of a bank earns X, Y, and Z, and per hour, and a nurse or a doctor or someone serving, you know, working in logistics, providing food in this age, in this era of the pandemic, earns much less, when their work is much more socially relevant. And now, and you know, there's even the argument about being in general. So it's really important that we also think about that division rather than just the main division. Colette, may I suggest that we use the rest of the time today to maybe read some of the notes, and then, because we have about 15 minutes, and engage in some conversation, and then definitely we will have a session where we could unpack what we've done today and organize it. Does it make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. We've got
So
I guess something like this, it's I mean, it's actually great. I think this is working well. I mean, this is the first time I've done it like this before, and it's actually a great way to just see what we're putting down. Actually, I think it's working. But yeah, so in terms of reading, will I start to read things out, and maybe someone else then can maybe take over and read? I'm going to start from the bottom and go up. So I'll read the first few, and then maybe I just pick someone else that I see on my screen to read, and then the next person. Okay, spending time with people who live alone, visiting elderly, volunteering, caring for parents, growing own food, raising environmental issues, growing own fuel crops, caring for family members with disability, cooking and cleaning, and then volunteering. So Mike, if I pass it to you, and then maybe you just pass it to someone else to read the next few.
So just before we actually read a bit more, so I think, could we just maybe think through what we just read? Because here we could identify at least two clear clusters of work. One is around looking after the others, particularly like spending time with people who live alone, like in this age where social distancing became fundamental. But so there's this idea of looking after others, particularly those we in society identify as vulnerable. And on the other hand, we also have this idea of growing our own food, growing and making our own food as something that is labor that basically one is cooking and then one is actually growing. But this is really a typical example of an activity which doesn't have it's under-recognized, undervalued. But on the other hand, particularly growing food is, and also looking after others, has the counterpart within the productive, visible side of things when you are looking for others, say, in a care home, or when food is grown through industrial processes. So it's also very interesting to see that the same kind of activity from a sort of material viewpoint has within the, according to the context in which it is operated or carried out, has a different value assigned to it. Was I sure? Was I good?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is good. Very good here. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I'll
see more now. Yeah.
I will move things around as they're read,
Yeah.
so that we begin to see what the clusters are. So Micah, would you read maybe the next few? So from here.
Sure. The pink ones, or?
So from here up, so we have the, whoops, see, can you see? So from these purple ones.
Okay.
Yeah, all these, so the black ones are red.
So yeah, volunteering work as well. Housework is mentioned, which is probably separate. Well, that might be looking after others, but not necessarily if there's households of one. Committee members, yeah. So then we have cooking meals, community projects, making clothes, which are all kind of households, yeah, and community projects. So allotment, preserving the environment, which is both food growing, I suppose, and also environment is connected, of course. Community centers and groups involved in caring and other social work.
I guess maybe they have a link there, don't they?
Bit overlapping, yeah, definitely. Volunteers helping the elderly, yeah. Taking care of others, volunteering. Tidy towns, yeah, of course, volunteering, cleaning litter. Volunteers cleaning beaches, yeah, they're very good. Volunteers planting trees, guerrilla groups, cool, yeah. Volunteer groups involved in, reducing emissions, yeah. Yeah, so that's also like a community-based group.
Okay, so you just maybe pick someone else to read from there on.
Yeah, Helen, would you like to give it a go?
Bartering. That's a kind of a community exchange.
Mm-hmm.
I can't see the one beside it there. Home something. Oh, home brewing.
Oh.
That's kind of like down provisions and the crops, I'd say. Down
into
growing kind of type. Yeah. Home. Sharing homegrown produce. That is back, I'd say, down to a similar type. I'd say down to the next one, maybe, to the growing food, and yeah. And foraging, where would that go?
So I guess, sorry, I guess it's food related, just down.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Food. Yeah, there's a lot.
Caring for the elderly, that would go down to the other side. And then swapping clothes. So that could be
Swapping clothes, making clothes.
yeah, kind of.
Personal items or personal upcycling would be.
Yeah, similar to the clothes, maybe, yeah. And hand-me-downs, or that's hand-me-downs. So they might be the same kind of social, getting social things together. Grow it yourself, right down to the crop.
Down to the bottom, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, growing food. Choirs, that's great. That's a social kind of is that by itself just for the moment, a kind of a recreation, kind of maybe with GAA. I don't know. I see GAA out there.
Perhaps entertainment as well. That's kind of.
And maybe the street art goes into that trio. Caretakers down to the family. Oh yeah, and the housework. That whole housework is the biggest gathering, yeah. Money lending, amazing.
That goes with, well, it's not quite bartering really, but they're
exchange.
Informal exchanges. Yeah.
Household chores, they go down to the bottom.
Where do you see that one?
Just above the arrow there in the blue sticky, second one. Down, down the
Here is my first sticky. That's a category of its own. Sorry, Helen, where did you see that one again?
It's just their household chores in the center.
Yeah, okay, so that's housework again.
Yeah. And I see swapping things or services again is kind of like
this is bartering.
Yeah, the lending. What is CZW?
Cobh Zero Waste, I'd say.
Oh yes.
Environmental.
Yeah.
I put it over volunteering for now. But it should be environmental activism.
So there's caretakers that would go down to the bottom right, maybe. Yeah. And the rental groups would go down there again.
Go to care group, is it?
I'd put it down by the family, maybe. I don't know. Just
down in the care section.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, yeah, I wonder. Yeah, I don't know what the intention was behind that. So that's just my
rental groups. Would they be like
parents getting together and swapping advice and support group kind of thing?
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know. I don't go to these things.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so Helen, will you pass the baton on to somebody else?
Okay, Phoebe, I see you over there.
Yep. So community help groups down to the right, the community stuff.
Yeah, okay.
Activist groups, campaigns, kind of in between community and volunteering.
Yeah.
Tourism animation group.
Would that
I'm
be
not sure what that is.
I think
they are.
They get dressed up in a period costume.
Yeah, to welcome the liner tours. So they're like, I think they're unpaid, but you know they are used obviously to give tourists a warm welcome and to make them spend money, I suppose, and guide them in the right direction. So it's important, like.
So does this look like the right place to put them? Like in
I'm not sure. They're kind of, in my opinion, they should be paid, you know, in a way, because they're working to promote tourism and stuff like that in the town. And
But they act as volunteers, like.
yeah, they do. Yeah. So
unfortunately.
So it is volunteer work.
yeah, maybe volunteer work more. Yeah.
So what we got here? What's the Sirius?
Would that be down with the entertainment, or would it be more?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's like entertainment / education, all these things.
And culture.
Yeah,
right?
culture. Yeah,
Culture,
exactly.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Clubs in the same. Chase would be down with the environmental volunteering. Providing boarding. Is that like giving someone somewhere to stay?
Yeah, I didn't say it right, but I mean, you know, there's a lot of people who live with someone who are not paying rent or whatever. So.
Yeah, especially with lockdown.
Yeah.
Kind of staying with friends and stuff.
Students who have to move back home, you know, that kind of thing.
Would that be down with the care? Maybe caring for people?
Yeah.
But it's a form of care, yeah, but a different kind of care.
Yeah.
Not, yeah, it's a type of caretaking, but it's probably more like doing favors for people.
Yeah, an informal exchange even.
Community garden?
Down with environmental. Yeah, more towards the provisions.
Yeah, actually that's it.
Community center. Down with
this cluster?
Yeah, the culture. Maybe. Home composting. We'll go with the household stuff.
And the growing, is it down?
Yeah.
Growing your own food.
This one, I guess, as well then?
Mm-hmm. Family care would be down with caretaking. Looking after son during lockdown, down with caretaking. It's making me a bit reflective time, thinking, making art.
That one.
It's a lovely one.
Yeah.
Where does that go?
Well, it's a bit esoteric, maybe.
Yeah. Very important though.
Just let it float there maybe for a while.
Yeah. Car lifts. Car lifts might go with the informal lending and swapping kind of area. And those two, checking in with friends, giving advice to friends, would be, I'm not sure. It's more of a personal thing, isn't it?
I guess there's a degree of care in both.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They probably are more kind of care related.
Mm-hmm. So community gardens, garden upkeep. Communities, like the community gardens is volunteering. And then garden upkeep, free advertising, family catering.
So this
a few
was for,
different things in there.
yeah, I just ended up, I couldn't get them into separate. So domestic related, I guess. Maybe over in this area here. We're nearly there.
Growing veg at home would be housework provisions. Recycling takes learning, knowledge, and adaptation in a different country and the system behind recycling business. Yeah, definitely. When I lived in Japan, it was crazy trying to recycle and stuff there. There was so specific. And that's like household.
Yeah.
Painting the house is household. Does someone else want to have a go? Or?
Want to just maybe call someone's name that you can see?
Is Maggie there? I can't see
Yeah.
anyone at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want to go?
Okay. Shopping for my neighbor. That's caring, I presume. Can you see that there? Yeah. And driving my mother shopping, again, caring, I think. Yeah.
That in the right. Okay, so now we're beginning to float up into the productive. For all these secondhand, I suppose still is. I think we've got two more, maybe Moggy there. Have we?
Oh, right. Teaching, learning cookery, baking skills, food budgeting.
Sorry,
We have a cooking one down there, haven't we?
Oh yeah, this one here. Oh yeah.
Yellow one, yeah.
And the domestic.
Yeah.
Cool.
Second-hand charity shops, that's, I presume, working, volunteering, is it? Yeah.
Is it?
Probably a mix.
Oh,
They
maybe.
can volunteers.
So volunteering.
Yeah.
Okay, and the others then are the productive, or what's considered productive. Is that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is these are all the different clusters.
Colette, let me ask you a question. Is this can you keep? Is this able to be like capped as such?
Yeah. It stays. Stays visible. So everyone who's, everyone who's linked in tonight has access to this board.
So may I suggest? Yeah. So what I suggest is that I think we need now to have another session around this, and potentially what we could do is come up with the clusters that we came up with. So maybe just write them up between ourselves and then maybe share with everyone. And I'm not sure maybe how it's what's best, or we just leave it as it is and then we come back to another day and then we start organizing them into the concepts basically, or key areas.
So what I could do is that what we have here organized into clusters, just maybe spread them again around.
And then we go from there and start creating, like, basically where there is commonalities, we come up with just a few words to identify them. Like you already have here care, different types of care, volunteer care, paid care, everything that has to do with household maintenance, growing, volunteering for kind of within sort of community service, all of that. And then there are a few a bit more bartering, so like exchanges. So it's not, we already have a bit of this and then we can move there. Yeah. It's quite fascinating. So because that's what we need then to do probably is from then the macro approach where we have all these activities and then we and organizations, and we came up with like the clusters, and then we need to then again look back to where we are to see how they relate to the context in which we operate, what's missing, what might not be missing. Yeah, and sounds very good, because we can stay, but I don't want to mess up with everyone's timetable and schedule. So
the other thing as well is that what I find when I'm doing things like this is that I think of things afterwards. So you can always just come back in and add more stuff.
Yeah.
Now for me, definitely, I'm just, because I'm kind of part facilitating tonight, I haven't really kind of got into it. But I know that I can start thinking about this tonight, and I'll probably come back in and maybe add a few more sticky notes. So I think, everyone now has access to this board, so you can, come back over the next while and just add something else in that you think of.
exactly. Okay, sounds nice. Okay, I think it's because then we can share. I mean, we know we will add, we'll put together a second section, so it's fine as a follow-up. Yeah, does it make sense, Moggy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sounds good.
So okay, so what we're going to do now is so we kind of conclude the session today, which is this amazing exercise. I mean, it's just fabulous to see. I came across Miro like through Colette. I knew it existed, but I only did it today, and suddenly all of us were here, and we could all immediately, jump on board, like basically start contributing, which is fantastic. So very productive, very interesting. And this is exactly, again, like Colette said, it would be much probably easier if we were all together in the same room. And so we are also facing the challenges of having to do this virtually, but it was very interesting to move from theory to practice to reality to context and see a lot of this activity taking place around us, and progress with our work. I'm going to stop recording now, and then if you don't mind to just stay for another couple of minutes, because we'd like to ask you a more practical logistical questions. Is that okay?
Yeah.